Issei Hyodo is one of the biggest perverts along with his two friends, Matsuda and Motohama, and attends a previously all-girls school. During school day, Issei goes to peek at the girls of the kendo club along with Matsuda and Motohama, who fled after realizing that the girls noticed them, leaving Issei to the mercy of the girls. After getting beaten up by the kendo club girls for peeking, Issei meets a crimson-haired girl, Rias Gremory, in the old school building, falling in love at first sight. Later, on his way home, Issei meets a girl named Yuma Amano, confesses her feelings to him, and they agree to go on a date. During their first date, Yuma suddenly kills Issei at the end of the date, revealing her black wings to Issei much to the latter's surprise. Before creating a spear of light and piercing his body. Moments before his death, Issei thought of Rias and ends up, unknowingly, summoning her. Issei wakes up the next day in his room and was surprised to find that none of his friends remember Yuma. He also realizes that he has gained the ability to see in the dark and developed increased strength at night. While on his way home from his friend's house, Issei went to the park where he last met Yuma, meeting another fallen angel, Donasek, who also attempts to kill Issei. Donasek successfully injures Issei, but before he can deliver the finishing blow, Issei is rescued by three girls, one of them being Rias. The next morning Issei wakes up surprised to find a naked Rias sleeping beside him. While Rias says that the situation is quite alright, Issei, who still could not fathom his good luck, is surprised, embarrassed and confused at this unexpected good turn of events. However, the situation worsens when his mother walks into his room and sees him together with a naked Rias, causing a chaos to ensue, early in the morning. After sorting out the situation with Issei's parents, Rias explains that she is a devil, and has reincarnated him as a servant devil underneath her. After class, Issei is visited by Yuto Kiba, a second-year student, who has come to escort Issei to the occult research club. In the clubroom, Issei meets two other members of the club, Akeno Hamejima and Kaneko Toju, the two girls that helped Rias earlier to rescue Issei. Rias explains to Issei about the Great War between the three factions comprised of angels, fallen angels, and devils. She also reveals that Yuma was a fallen angel that was sent to kill him, as she reintroduces Issei to both her clan alongside her peerage members. After successfully finishing the distribution of pamphlets that were given to him by Rias, Issei is given a chance to visit Kaneko's client as the client's request was overlapping with her schedule. However, while on his way back home after doing business with the client, Issei is confronted by another fallen angel, Calawarner, but was able to fend her off after he gains the ability to harness the power of his sacred gear. Issei bump into a nun named Azia Argento, knocking her over. On his way to school, the next day, Issei helps the nun, Azia Argento, to her feet. After she tells him she is lost, Issei agrees to escort her back to the church. On the way, after encountering a boy crying due to a bruised knee, Azia displays a healing ability, which upon witnessing causes Issei to have a queasy feeling. This feeling increases as they finally get to the proximity of the church to the extent that it causes Issei to refrain from entering the church or lead Azia any further. Later on, after questioning Rias about the strange feeling he experienced while escorting the girl to the church, Rias tells Issei that the church is an enemy's base and being friends with Azia is the same as fraternizing with the enemy. Later, Rias and the group take Issei with them to kill a stray devil. Rias uses the battle to explain each person's chess rank and ability to Issei. Later on, another mission to get a contract is taken up by Issei, who arrives at a house. Upon entering, Issei is confronted by a bloody corpse which is the work of an insane exorcist named Fried Selzen that serves the fallen angels, who reveals his presence. Fried proudly admits to killing the man. He identifies Issei as another devil and begins to attack him. Initially, Fried has the upper hand when he shoots Issei in the leg with a gun and slashes him with a light sword. Eventually, Azia comes into the room, instantly startled by and screaming at the sight of the bloody body. Fried comments on why Azia left her job of maintaining the barrier, which was used to mask his presence. Fried tries to attack Issei again, but Azia intervenes by rushing in front of the paralyzed Issei to protect him. Fried easily shoves Azia from her place and restrains her against a wall, trying to rape her in front of Issei. This causes Issei to immediately ignore his pain and punch Fried in his face. Fried then turns his full attention to Issei, but just as he is about to be finished off, the other members of the occult research club arrive, assisting Issei in his dilemma. Issei and his companions escape quickly after, leaving Fried alive as his master began approaching in a blinding light. Before they escape, Issei desperately wants to bring the injured Azuya with them, but finds out he cannot since the transportation circle only works for people that are a part of the Gremory clan. Recovering from the previous battle, Issei is focused on getting stronger to rescue Azuya despite Rias' repeated attempts, berating him for attempting to get involved in the business of the opposing side. Issei encounters Azuya at the park and ending up going on a date with her. Towards the end of the date, Reincarnated, the fallen angel who had earlier disguised herself as Yuma, appears and starts a fight with Issei, easily defeating him. Seeing Issei get injured while trying to protect her, Azuya agrees to go with Reincarnated in return for Issei to be spared, a term that Reincarnated agrees to. After Azuya is taken away by Reincarnated, Issei returns to the clubroom in order to try and get help indirectly. This time, however, to his surprise, Rias helps him, explaining to him that as a pawn, he can rank up to any other piece, except for king. Later on, Yuto and Kaneko go with him to the church, where Azuya is held hostage in order to save her, while Rias and Akeno deal with the trio of fallen angels, Donasek, Kalawarner, and Mithilt, who were tasked with guarding the church. Fried appears to stop Issei and his group, but ends up defeated by Kaneko and Issei, especially after the latter ranks up to be a rook. After Fried escapes, Issei and his group head to the basement, witnessing Reincarnated stealing Azuya's sacred gear, killing her in the process. Azuya's life starts to fade away despite Issei begging her to live, promising to be with her all the time as her friend. At her final moments, Azuya thanks Issei for being her first friend, which greatly saddens him. Reincarnated shows up revealing that she can now heal the injury Kiba inflicted on her, demonstrating that she's now capable of harnessing the power of Azuya's sacred gear, Twilight Healing. Disgusted by Reincarnated's actions, Issei challenges her to a fight in a bout of rage. Meanwhile, outside the church, Rias and Akeno continues their fight against the fallen angel trio until Rias disposes of them after being greatly angered when her servant is insulted. Inside the church, Issei attempts to attack Reincarnated, but to no avail as the stronger fallen angel not only maintains an upper hand in their fight but also impales him in both of his thighs with light spears. Issei, remembering Rias' advice, begs for the power to beat Reincarnated, causing his sacred gear to activate for the first time, increasing his powers beyond Reincarnated's, thus allowing Issei to punch Reincarnated in the face and defeat the fallen angel in one blow. After the battle, Rias and the others appear to congratulate Issei on his first victory. Rias notices the change in Issei's sacred gear, realizing its true identity. Rias then explains to Reincarnated that Issei's sacred gear is not the twice critical, as she initially surmised, but rather the boosted gear, one of the 13 Longinus that has the spirit of the Red Dragon Emperor sealed within it. Realizing she is in danger, Reincarnated changes back into Yuma, desperately begging for Issei to spare her life. However, Issei, seeing through her ploy, and asks Rias to kill her off instead. Confirming her death, Issei is gloomy upon the death of his supposed first girlfriend. However, when Rias decides to make Azuya into her servant, returning Azuya's sacred gear to her after bringing back the former sister to life as a devil using the bishop piece from her evil piece set. The next day, as Issei arrives at Occult Research Club, he questions Rias on the possibility of there being 7 more pawns besides him, to which Rias reveals that she has used all her pawn pieces on him while she revived him. Rias, then, tells Issei to become the ultimate pawn, kissing him on the forehead before stopping as Azuya appears in the Occult Research Club, having transferred to the Kuo Academy, as they welcome the newest member of the club. Meanwhile, a mysterious person is shown to be looking at the scene through a red bird outside the window of the Occult Research Club. New living arrangements have been made for Azuya in the clubroom, who has been living with the Occult Research Club for some time now. Meanwhile, Rias decides to have Issei undergo basic training to improve his stamina and physical fitness. Issei is surprised to learn that Azuya has decided to move to the Hyodo residence to stay with him. The next day, Azuya transfers to Issei's class too, and manages to get along with her new classmates. After finishing the distribution of the pamphlets, Issei decides to try and get his own client, meeting Mil-tan, a bulky muscular man whose greatest wish is to be a magic girl. Issei is getting frustrated on the fact that he failed to get a contract again. He then wakes up surprised upon finding a naked Rias sleeping beside him. After waking up, Rias dresses up and decides to accompany Issei to his next client in order to make sure that he'll get a contract done this time. The request that Issei receives involves meeting a foreigner girl named Susan that always wears oyoroi due to her typical love for the Japanese culture, especially the samurais and their bushido code. Susan then reveals that her request for the devils is to help her in taking her notes back from the university and assist in her love confession. Using Issei's advice of writing a love letter, Susan manages to properly convey her feelings, resulting in her love interest, Hori, a man wearing a medieval knight's armor, and her, becoming a couple successfully. Back at the Occult Research Club, as a victory celebration for his first contract, both Issei and Rias share an intimate moment, causing Akeno to note the subtle change in her master's behavior. Rias decides that it is time for Issei and Azuya to get their own familiars. Rias and the others then reveal their own familiars but are interrupted when the student council arrives. Rias then reveals to Issei that the current president of the student council, Sona Citri, is also a high-class devil and hails from the Citri clan. Both Rias and Sona then introduce their new servants to each other as Issei and Saji start a new rivalry amongst themselves. When Saji reveals that he was given the right to have a familiar by Sona, it overlaps with Rias' plan to have Issei and Azuya one, causing both Rias and Sona to be troubled by the fact that only one of them can get a familiar at one time. This prompts them, along with their fellow queens, to decide to have a tennis match in order to decide who gets to receive their familiar first. However, their match ends in a draw. Rias and Akeno decided to have a dodgeball match. The dodgeball match ends with the Occult Research Club winning, albeit with extensive damage to school property due to their extravagant usage of demonic powers in the game. At the familiar forest, Issei and the others meet the familiar master, Zatoji, who guides them throughout the familiar forest, discovering an Undine along the way. Issei's expectations of having an Undine as a familiar, due to his assumption of them being beautiful water spirits, are crushed mercilessly when he sees that the real Undines are burly old muscular women wearing pink togas, causing them to continue their quest for familiars. Later on, after encountering a baby sprite dragon, Issei originally wanted to capture it as his familiar but later changes his opinion, when a slime appears and dissolves the clothes of all the girls present. Issei, impressed by the slime's capabilities and its dauntless potential for perverseness, then decides to pick the slime as his familiar. This however ends in failure, as Rias and the others, disgusted by the slime's lecherous nature, exterminate it much to Issei's woe. As Issei desperately tries to protect the last of the slime on Azuya, the baby sprite dragon attacks him and destroys off all the remaining slime by electrocuting it. The familiar master then reveals that the baby sprite dragon has taken a liking to Azuya, who then proceeds to make the baby sprite dragon her familiar, and names it, Rase. Issei dreams of himself marrying Rias, which indirectly leads him to get in touch with his inner dragon. At the clubroom, Azuya is seen healing Issei with Rias saying that she has no problem with showing her body to Issei. After Issei and the others leave, Rias and Akeno have a private conversation on Rias' recent favoritism towards Issei. As Akeno leaves, an unknown magic circle is shown to appear before Rias in the clubroom. Back in Issei's room at night, Rias suddenly appears, oddly asking Issei to take her virginity out of the blue. Before Rias can continue, a new figure appears and interrupts them, introducing herself as Grafia. Rias then leaves as she's escorted out by Grafia. The next day, Issei meets Riser Phoenix, another high-class devil from the Phoenix clan, and Rias' fiancé. Rias and Riser then have a dispute, due to the disagreement caused by Rias' blatant refusal to marry Riser. Seeing the dispute between Rias and Riser escalate, Grafia offers mediation terms, proposing either of them sort out their differences by playing a rating game with each other. After it is decided that they would have a rating game against each other to solve the problem. Riser introduces his full peerage to Rias and the others, causing Issei to look upon Riser's female-only peerage with a mixture of jealousy, envy, and admiration. However, after seeing Riser shamelessly flirt with his queen, Issei gets angry and challenges Riser to a fight, but immediately loses, being struck down by Mira, one of Riser's pawns, whom he also claims as his peerage's weakest member. Riser leaves after Rias accepts the terms for the rating game. Rias prepares a cottage in an uninhabited mountain for the Occult Research Club to begin their training activities. However, despite training with Kiba in swordfighting, with Akeno on magic, and finally, with Kaneko on close quarters combat, Issei fails miserably. However, later on, while cooking using magic, Issei notices that upon imagining Akino's naked body, he can harness his demonic power to peel the potatoes with remarkable ease. Coupling it with the feeling he got when he first activated his sacred gear against Kalawarner, Issei gets an idea for developing a new move. Meanwhile, Grafia is seen discussing with her master, Sirzex, on Rias' decision to accept the rating game challenge. During nighttime, Issei sneaks out by himself to practice the new move he thought of until Azia shows up to help him. The next day, Rias starts explaining about the history of the devils, angels, and fallen angels, which in turn leads to the creation of the rating games. The next morning, Issei once again has a sparring match with Kiba. However, having trained rigorously for 10 days, his and the Occult Research Club's various efforts pay off when Issei manages to power up his boosted gear enough to use Dragon Shot, which he then uses against Kiba, causing an entire mountainside to be leveled as a collateral. This not only secures his first win against his fellow comrade, but also causes Rias' training regimen to achieve to its desired conclusion. Issei and his friends make final preparations and prepare themselves mentally as they wait for the rating game against Riser and his team to commence. Before leaving, Sona and Tsubaki arrives to show their support for Rias and wishes her good luck. The Gremory team is then transported to a dimension where they see a replica of Kuo Academy, which is to be used as the field for the rating game. Prior to the start of the match, Rias formulates a strategy and orders Akino, Yuto, and Kaneko to place traps in preparation against Riser's assault. While the others head off to make their preparations, Rias, then, unseals part of the seal she previously placed on Issei due to his lack of strength to withstand it. After finishing their preparations, Issei and Kaneko head to the gymnasium where they are confronted by 4 of Riser's servants, his rook, Shueilin, and pawns, Mira, Eel and Nell. Kaneko decides to battle it out with Shueilin, leaving Issei to deal with the remaining 3 pawns. Initially facing trouble due to being outnumbered 3-1, Issei manages to overcome the odds with the doubling ability of the boosted gear and succeeds in his task of immobilizing his opponents after revealing his new move, Dress Break, which strips off the girl's clothes. At the same time, Kaneko successfully immobilizes Shueilin by disabling her movements in a submission hold. The two, then, proceed to leave the gymnasium, allowing Akino to deal the finishing blow to the defeated 4 by destroying the gymnasium in one large-scale attack. Meanwhile, inside the forest, Kiba confronts another 3 of Riser's pawns, Sharia, Marion and Burrant, who got caught in the traps set by Rias' team while they were on their way to the enemy headquarters. Elsewhere, Kaneko and Issei decide to move on, initiating the next phase of their plan. Kaneko, disgusted by Issei's move, decides to walk ahead of Issei, only to be taken out by a surprise attack from Riser's queen, Yubaluna. Issei challenges Yubaluna in an attempt to avenge Kaneko but is stopped by Akino, who proceeds to fight her in his place. Issei regroups with Yuto after Rias is forced to revise her strategy due to Akino's fight with Yubaluna. Finally, deciding to face Riser herself, despite both Issei's and Yuto's staunch objection. With no options left, both men proceed to challenge the remaining members of Riser's peerage Revel. Yuto, then, fights Carlamine while Issei fights Isabella, defeating Isabella after using Dress Break to disable her movements before defeating her with his Dragon Shot. However, upon seeing that Rias is at a disadvantage in her fight against Riser, Issei, hoping to be more useful to her, allows his boosted gear to further evolve, transforming it into the boosted gear gift, before transferring the boosted power to Yuto. It is this transferred power that allows Yuto to successfully defeat Riser's remaining pieces, aside from Revel, in one wide-scale attack with his sword birth. The victory, however, is short-lived by an unexpected announcement of Akeno being defeated and Yuto's sudden elimination by Yubaluna. This causes Issei to ignore Revel's warning, as he heads into the enemy headquarters alone, before promoting into queen and heading to the rooftop to assist Rias and Azia. Issei, however, was incapable of doing anything as his body had reached its limit due to the burden of the boosted power that was continuously being placed upon his body, and was nearly thrashed to the point of near death by Riser. When Issei wakes up, finding himself passed out on his own bed after the rating game against Riser and his peerage, he blames himself, knowing that it was his powerlessness that forced Rias to resign. Soon after, Graphia, Sir Zek's queen, arrives at his home and gives Issei a magic circle that will allow him to attend the Gremory Phoenix engagement party in the underworld. When Issei arrives at the designated area and blatantly crashes the party, Sir Zex interferes, offering arbitration terms to settle the dispute by hosting a one-on-one battle between Riser and Issei, with Rias' engagement on the line. When the battle begins, it is revealed that Issei traded his left arm to the dragon that resides within him, in exchange for extreme power that will only last for 10 seconds. Issei is able to overpower Riser with his newfound power but is unable to defeat or deal him critical damage, due to him being a phoenix, especially in the brief 10 seconds window he has. However, even after the 10 seconds are up, Issei manages to win when he surprisingly attacks a weakened Riser with holy objects that he had earlier acquired from Azia, causing the Riser to experience excruciating spiritual pain. After winning the battle, Rias kisses Issei while flying on the griffin. This anime ends here. If this video get 1000 likes I will upload season 2. See everyone next time.